All right. Good evening and welcome to this Port Economic Development Grant Program Workshop for Forecasting Loss. It is Tuesday, July 29th, 2025, shortly after. Start with those papers.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
President Lorraine,
Here.
Vice President Clute, here, Commissioner Nats,
Here.
Commissioner Gadd,
Here.
and then Commissioner Todd is excused, or Todd is excused.
All right. Modifications, additions, and changes to the agenda.
Nope.
All right, we will front load this whole session with an executive session. So we'll, I guess,
Do you have it?
welcome people to leave until after the.
There should be a script right there for you.
Executive session script.
Yeah, I have a script here somewhere. You don't have it. Ah, there it is. Yes. All right. Port Cascade Loss Commission will now meet in executive session pursuant to ORS 192.6602F to consider information or records that are exempt by law for public inspection. Representatives of the news media are designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience are asked to leave the room. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on or otherwise disclose any of the deliberations or anything said about these subjects during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decision may be made in executive session. At the end of executive session, we will return to open session and welcome the audience back into the room. So thank you for joining us, and we shall return.
Martin, can we confirm that you're with Columbia Gorge News? Is that what the CGN is at the back? Thumbs up will work or whatever.
Yes, that's me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay.
All right. Righty, we are back. Let the discussion begin.
All right. Thank you, commissioners. And I want to make sure that everybody knows Jessica Mehta, Executive Director of the Mid-Columbia Economic Development District, also known as MCED. For those of you who weren't here last year, Travis, MCED administers our grant program via an IGA, intergovernmental agreement, and they provide this service at a flat fee with the service contract, and staff is recommending renewing that contract for round 2. Just to give some high elevation review of how our first year went. We were successful in attracting 9 applications altogether, 8 of which were deemed eligible for consideration, and 7 ultimately were awarded grants. The $150,000 fund was fully expended and attracted a total of $67,281.64 in matching, either matching funds or the value of in-kind donations, added up to over $67,000 to leverage the port's investment in those projects. Of the 7 awarded projects, 2 so far, Jessica, correct me if I'm wrong, but 2 so far have been successfully completed. The commission has received and approved 1 final report, and that was from Cascade Locks Fire and EMS. We have received a final report from Landmass, and they will be presenting to you, I think, in the August meeting, their final report to you. The rest of the awardees are listed there. Jessica, I don't know if you want to give a little status report on those guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
So for grants of 10,000 or less, they get half of the grant just upon signing the contract. And so that has been given out, for example, to Brigham Fish. Actually, they're the only other one.
Besides Landmass.
Yeah. Well, so 11 from Heaven is they're probably complete. They have just a tiny bit of money left to ask for, but I think they're pretty much done with the project.
Okay.
And so I expect if we check in with her, we'll get a final report soon. Brig and Fish, like I said, we just gave them their initial disbursement, and we've heard that they did complete the ecology blocks,
Mhm.
but are
Yeah.
still working on the electrical. Northwest Trail Alliance, they've made a lot of progress. They're waiting on rain for the final leg of that project. And we have given them about 2/3 of the money at this point. Kylie Coffee, we just are working on their initial reimbursement request. They've got the roof done on the building and are working on the rest of the pieces. And Bike the Gorge, we have given them an initial reimbursement request. So I know they purchased the bike lane sweeper and they are using it. But that's all I've heard so far from them. I still need to check.
I've seen them in action.
Yeah, me too. It's pretty cool. So, this first round was really sort of our demonstration of concept round. It took us, I think, 4 months longer than we thought it would to get through the development of that concept. And so we really gave our awardees a pretty short timeline to complete their projects. And so we opened the window for applications. It was an online application form. Before all of that, the commission had set their scoring criteria. And even before that, you had set 3 focus areas. And the idea was that every year you would review those focus areas and the scoring criteria and be able to make adjustments, not just for round 2, but for round 3, 4, 5, and all these adjustments that we might need to make to make sure that we are receiving the greatest return on our investment in these partnerships with these local entities. So the focus areas for round 1 were downtown revitalization, tourism and recreation, and public safety. And so we will be asking you to talk about your feelings about focus areas for round 2. And as we discussed throughout the process, really all of the projects that are the deliverables or the result of these grants, we really should be thinking of them as works of the port. We are entering into a funding contract with a business partner to create a project and finish a project successfully that will have a tangible impact on the port's ability to achieve the goals and objectives that were outlined in our strategic business plan. So we do have a question in the application where we ask the applicant to expressly tell us, what does your project do for our ability to achieve our goals and objectives? One thing we'll talk about later, I would like to kind of formalize that a little bit more and actually ask for specific citations straight out of the plan. Most of the applicants did do that, but I'd like to kind of make that a little bit more solid in the application of really, really, make your case. As Jeremiah was saying, one big change in round 2 is that the application process I expect to be much more competitive because we will have one opening for the grant applications and a specific deadline date. MCED will do their scoring work based on the criteria that the commission sets. And you will get all of these applications in one batch. And so different from round 1 where they kind of trickled in, and I think the most we looked at in one meeting was 3 at once, right? Now you'll be looking at all of them at once, and there really will be a new sense of competition between these applications, which is absolutely a good thing. And so that's just one thing that we should be thinking about as we just make these discussions of changes that you want to make. Included in your packet is the guidelines for the application, for the program, sorry, not the application. The rules, it expressly describes the eligibility criteria. There is a copy of the scoring rubric that MCED staff uses when they score each application. And you have already seen the scoring sheet that you got. So we want to hear from you how you feel about how that worked for you. If you have any changes you would like to make. We did score 2 questions in the application at double weight specifically because of that need to connect the project to our strategic business plan. And that is question number 5, which is the alignment with the strategic business plan. There for excellent, that would be a 6-point score versus a 3. Adequate would be 4 points versus 2, and needs improvement would be 1, and then 0 are the same for not so good. Job creation is also a double weight scoring criteria. So, Jeremiah, do you want to talk first about focus areas?
Oh, yeah, I mean,
Start with the tip of the iceberg.
yeah, I think we can talk about that. So we have everything. Yeah, perfect. So I guess it's like she said, our focus area was the first thing that we kind of looked at last year. We had those 3 downtown revitalization, tourism, recreation, and public safety. Those fit nicely within our strategic business plan, but our strategic business plan is very broad and takes in a number of different things. Are there other places that you guys would like to see focused this year? We have things like workforce housing in our strategic business plan. We have a number of different directions that we could sort of go. We could work heavily towards job creation this year if we want to really focus on that as being, and it's not going to prevent people from submitting, but it's specifically going to make them tie to those, which could help with the scoring.
Job creation, is it for long-term jobs only or short-term, like if you're just hiring like a local contractor to come in and support the project?
So if you, so we don't score, so a local contractor can come in and support the project and be grant eligible. But to answer the question of does this create jobs, that job would not be included in that answer.
Yeah.
So like, you built us this office, that's fine, but is somebody going to work in it? If they say yes, then that project gets job creation.
Yeah, so for an excellent score, which would be 6 points, now the way we have it is that the project will definitely create jobs and more than a few. Adequate score, which would be 4 points, would be the project will definitely create jobs, but only a few. So if you want to kind of, you could absolutely.
I guess we need to clarify if those, like what we were talking about before, if those jobs are tied to the project itself or the long-term jobs that come because of.
Yeah, exactly. If you want to talk about like in a construction project, a lot of times when we do an application for a project, especially on the federal and the state level, they want to know how many short-term jobs, meaning how many construction jobs, and then how many long-term jobs, and you have to really defend your application on both levels.
And within the application, it's fairly clear, is it not, that it's speaking about?
Yeah, it's the question is, let's see. Specific question is, will your project result in the creation of new jobs or help retain current jobs? If so, please explain how. Please describe both direct and indirect results in terms of job creation or retention from your project.
Some people answer the question like, I'm gonna hire somebody to paint my house, thus I've helped out with the job, but we did not include that. So even though they included that in their explanation of how they think they created jobs, when we get to the scoring, we're like, hey, not good.
Yeah.
That's a.
But I think we can clarify the question, or I
Yeah, exactly.
Just, yeah, estimate the short-term versus long-term job creation.
Okay.
Or they can't say, well, like.
That's what I mean.
I do this wall is gonna be.
And I think-
12 people.
Right.
It's fair.
I'm gonna take notes here.
As far as the original question, downtown revitalization, tourism, recreation, and public safety. I still see those as probably the primary main focus. I feel if we add any more, it might either broaden it too much or basically fall within one of these 3 umbrellas anyways.
These 3 are general enough that it lends itself to a lot of flexibility. I mean, I'm wondering about our scoring criteria as far as we had talked in the past about having a minimum a minimum score? Or is there a point where we say, yeah, I don't think that scored high enough to even warrant, is there do we want to have a cutoff that they don't, right? If they don't get 30 or more.
I feel like we're still so new into this that going through it one more year without minimum score might be helpful to see what we
Yeah.
get in and see
Yeah, in
like
fact,
how
there
it
wasn't
gets
a
scored.
huge train wreck the first year was great. I mean, seriously, because a lot of times when you start something late in the season, well, like when the stern wheeler started, new operator mid-season, that was close to a train wreck. So, I mean,
It's a boat wreck.
boat wreck,
Wait, actually, yes.
So, but I think the fact that I think this program came off really well, and certainly some of the improvements we may see are just the fact that we've now got a full year,
Well, and I think having
and
that.
all of them at the same time.
And I thought, not to interrupt you guys, but are we good with the focus areas? I know we've been talking two, and that's exactly what we're talking about. I just want to make sure we like talk about them.
Yeah.
You want to continue with those three and not add any more?
I think so.
Okay.
Travis?
Yeah, sounds good.
Great.
Okay. So I just want to keep checking things
Mhm.
off, because I had a pillow that's calling my name.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The
It's Austin.
I'm on East Coast time right now, so.
Yeah.
So updates.
So when we-
Yeah.
Yeah, if I could just kind of talk a little bit, sorry, I'm in like a laser beam sense. A little bit about the flow of an application. So the first thing that happens when we get an application submitted on the web, on our web form, is I do a review to make sure that the application is complete. And if it's not, then I email the applicant and say, hey, you're missing this, that, and the other thing.
Right.
And then once I decide that the application is complete, then I forward it to MCED. And they also check for complete lists, make sure that I didn't miss anything, check that the applicant has submitted all of the required documents, and they start their scoring process based on the scoring rubric. What they send back to us is their scoring sheet and a summary with a memo of this is who the applicant is, this is what they're applying for. And based on their application, this is their score. That shows up in your commission packet on which you get Thursday, Friday before the meeting, time to review it. And then you discuss in your meeting. Did that work for you? Is that how you want to do it? Do you want to think about, did you
We're
want
gonna
any
get them
more
all.
info, less info,
We're gonna get them all at once this time. I
Yeah.
think having a separate working session like this might be helpful instead of combining it
Sorry.
with a meeting.
Yeah,
Cause it's
That
just
was-
gonna be an
That was sort of
incredibly
my,
long meeting otherwise.
Yeah.
and it also gives you guys, this was sort of my recommendation too, is that you guys have a work session, because it gives you an opportunity to not be in agreement about certain things, to go back and reflect about the conversation and go, yeah, that actually did make some sense, or, right, so you have some time to at the next meeting, then we can come back at the next meeting and you guys have had an opportunity to work on, to work through it without, in a work session, there's gonna be no decisions, right? So you're not forced to make a decision that night. You guys can walk away both thinking different things and it's not gonna get called to a vote and it has to happen.
I appreciate that.
yeah,
That, when I was on the Hood River Arts Council, that was, we got money from the state and then we kind of reallocated it, and the same thing, everybody submitted the grants that or the programs they wanted to. And that we had a meeting and went through and looked at all the applications, and kind of then if there were any additional questions, we reviewed all of them and said, okay, well, we need clarification on a few of those, and then that gives you time to be able to go back to the applicants and say, okay, we'd like a little more specific information.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about this so that we can be better informed when we make our scoring. And sometimes it'll take, a meeting to go through them
right,
first, and then one to kind of make the final decision about who's awarded, and are we giving them the full amount, or are we divvying it up in smaller amounts and we did that at the Arts Council where several people didn't get everything they wanted, but they got something. Because we didn't have quite enough money to go around, but didn't want to exclude somebody completely.
Yeah, and I should have mentioned that when I was talking about the flow of the applications. If after MCED's review, if MCED had a question, then I contacted the applicant. They had one chance to answer the question. And that was included in, their answer was included in the memo to you. And we were maybe kind of trying to err a little bit on the side of caution there, of really keeping it sort of a blind judgment for you. So you saw the end result. You know, if you are going to go in a work session process, how much do you want to vary from that course? Like right now, we have it really where we separate you from the process of the application, where you're really kind of judging based on the information provided in the application versus having the applicant here answering questions. And then you kind of like, if somebody is a little bit more charming, in person than they are on paper, and so how far do you want to get away from that separation?
I think how we have it is fine.
Okay.
I think for what might be helpful in a working session too, since we're gonna get bombarded by all of them at once, it's maybe having like a scoring spreadsheet listing them all out with like the order that MCED recommends, or not recommends, but the scores like sorted.
Yeah.
So that they can kind of go through and have that sheet with us when we're coming to vote for
Okay.
the next session.
Okay.
We can create our own cheat sheet.
Yeah.
Essentially.
So I guess going back to the updates, the eligibility criteria and scoring criteria,
Yeah.
and score weight.
Mhm.
When it comes to actually review from yourself as well as MCED,
Mhm.
obviously we only had 9, I believe, last time,
Mhm.
but I guess before I'm able to say, hey, let's change this or update this or whatnot, from a scoring standpoint, I would love to hear, like, when you were reviewing, were there very specific things that you were like, oh man, this we really need to have next time?
Yeah.
Or this is so hard to actually score. Why is this even a thing?
Yeah.
So the pros and cons, I guess, for the process from your guys' end
Yeah.
would be helpful for me.
Yeah.
And I mean, and really, that's gonna be a question for MCED.
One ideas to with the application, like right now, it doesn't, like, up at the top, like, how much are you asking for, if we don't call it out, a standard budget. Describe your project in 200 words, something like that would be helpful.
And we had a project description, a brief project description, a project title, so we actually have a standardized project title, a brief project description, the amount requested separate from the budget sheet. We had all the dollars kind of dealt with in the budget sheet versus the project narrative. So that's a couple of things. One thing that, I think needs extra attention, and Jeremiah and I have discussed this also with Jessica, is for those projects that are construction projects. Few improvements we think we can make to our application process. If we're talking about a construction project, we want to know if their permits have already been secured. And, or do you foresee any barrier to getting your permit? We really want to have them really explain where they're at in the permitting process. We want it, if they don't own their building or the land on which the project takes place, we want to see a written letter from the landowner granting permission for the project. This one kind of came up in an interesting grant, was for landmass, where they were buying the furniture for their little courtyard for their tastings. And we're the landowner. And Jessica said, well, are you guys, I'm guessing if you award the grant, you're okay with what they're gonna do to your building, right? And it's like, oh God, we didn't even think about, this landowner permit. And Kay Leah's coffee company, Shauna doesn't own that building, but the landowner is providing $10,000 of the match for the grant. So we have his express permission for these in that letter, but we want to have
A
an
specific.
actual specific, yes, it's okay to do this to my building letter, which we didn't have in the first. Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
when it comes to the city, there can be surprises. Because
right,
you're working on a commercial building, you
right.
have to have a licensed electrician,
All that,
licensed
yeah.
plumber,
yeah,
licensed.
yeah,
And if you're adding a bathroom, it's gonna cost you $6,100 before you do anything.
right.
Because they're
Right.
going to charge you for system development charges,
All
connection
that.
fees, and if they haven't checked into that,
Yeah,
that could be a big hit on,
right.
in
Yeah.
their budget.
Yeah, so with that.
And then in their building of their budget, we also want to formalize, like, can we see your quotes? How did you come up with these estimates? Submit your quotes that you've received from the contractors so far. So, not to pick on the construction projects because, those capital investments
And if
are
you're doing-
important
if
and
you're doing-
enduring.
So.
Yeah,
Is that allowed?
right,
The part of it they're doing.
Yeah.
Because you definitely get yourself in trouble if you're,
Right.
Yeah, we're saving a lot of money because we're doing all the work ourselves, but if
right,
it's not allowed to be doing it, then
yeah.
that can be problematic.
So then,
So we'll probably have a yes/no question that says, does your project involve construction? And if you click yes, then it's gonna accordion like 10 more questions, that really kind of nail that down a little bit more formally. So, and that will reduce our risk exposure on a construction project that wasn't fully baked out. Or that goes way over budget, which is so easy to do right now, and you run out of your grant money and you can't finish the project, and the port doesn't, receive the deliverable that it's, so.
so then. So from what I've heard is additional project detail, so I'm totally down with that, let's add that, but it doesn't seem like the project detail would impact scoring in any capacity. Those
Yeah.
should be additional questions that would help us understand project. From a construction standpoint, or just like if it's construction, we need permits and quotes and all of this. Do we want to have scoring be associated with that? Because if they're closer, if they already have their permit and they already have quotes, they're closer to making this happen already. So should we consider having weight to those types of projects? Jump.
Preparedness, should have a weight.
Yes.
Are they shovel ready? Do they have their information? Or are they feet from the hip?
Yeah.
We're asking for $50,000 because that's the maximum, but.
Right.
We might need $124,000 to actually do the project.
Right.
And are we okay with, an applicant that might stage their project where they're coming for a double dip?
And so we don't necessarily,
Over two different,
right,
grant cycles.
yeah,
So
Yeah.
question
we-
12 speaks to that a little bit.
sort of, yeah.
Where we've got plans for mitigation are addressed and seems feasible. Project readiness can be added to that too, and I think that probably, I wouldn't. That may be something you guys might consider weighting more.
Yeah, project readiness would be a big thing, especially.
If it scores very, very, very poorly in that category, that probably should be.
And since this round will be so much more competitive, if you do have two construction projects side by side and one can really start turning dirt the next day, that and one still hasn't gotten their first permit, I mean, that ready application should score much higher than the other one, just based on that.
I agree, I think we, for project readiness, should definitely have, scoring associated with it. It definitely feels like project readiness, remind me, once we do award. How long do they have to finish the project?
Well, in this round, they have until December 31st of this year to finish it.
Oh,
But the second round, that's a question to you that we actually have on our list of questions for you is, do you want to give them 2 years? Do you want to give them 1 year? We do want to talk about the timeline of, well, how are you guys feeling in round 2?
Cause.
And would it be different on different types of projects? Because some projects,
Yeah, of course.
if it's a construction project, it's certainly, there's the.
I'm more asking this
On the
timeline question because it could, for me personally, it would be like. Does that mean that the scoring for it should be the double like we have for jobs as well as alignment to the plan? Or should it be the regular 3, 2, 1? Because if they only have a year, then you gotta be ready.
Exactly,
And
exactly.
so that means.
Yeah.
We should score it double, because that means that we're ready.
Project timeline is part of, question, I would think, what is their project timeline? Because.
The application dig into project
More
timeline?
extensive, like Donna's.
In general,
she's like
it
doing
does kind of in a general
presentations
question.
at that Place, and it's gonna take longer, right? Than something where somebody's putting some furniture out on the patio for their tasting.
Mhm.
That's gonna.
Yeah.
A strict idea and they're done.
Right, I don't know, it feels like whether we decide 1 year or 2 years, I think it should be double, because like. We want projects that are actually going to impact and actually do something.
Right.
Versus like what you were saying earlier, Brad, like just a shooting from the hip, pie in the sky, like, oh, we have this idea, but. Who
Right.
knows? So
Well,
we
we
should
kind of,
double it.
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. We kind of made a really important distinction on that level with the small grants to the large grants, where with the small grants, like Jessica was saying, we decided we wanted to award half of the grant at the time of award. And we wanted to also allow the 20% match requirement could be in kind versus cash.
Right.
And the commission sort of decided they were willing to take more of a risk with those small grants, because maybe what they're applying for is the $6,100 to get the permit, or starting a new business, or establishing their 501c3, or, just the very first starting out stuff. And so with the small grant project, we kind of were a lot more forgiving on that readiness question, because we didn't want to turn people away who did just kind of have a cool idea for the small grant. So maybe we're not quite so,
So if it's low grant, maybe have the preparedness just be 1, 2, 3, if it's a big grant. 2, 2, 4, 6.
I don't know. Yeah, that's a good
I
question.
mean, it could still, I mean, the smaller
Still
grants.
score high.
Yeah, it could still be
Yeah.
2, 4, 6, and we just see that the small grants are gonna be against another small grant, and if one's
Exactly.
ready,
And
like.
it's good, like, whenever we get them all at the same time, the small grants, just have lower scores, just
Yeah.
across the board, because.
Right,
And
They're not gonna make as many jobs, not gonna do it, so big one could,
right.
so, okay.
so
I'm down with, I don't know about you guys, Travis doing this too, but I'm okay with having preparedness. Between the 2, 4, 6 instead of 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
we'll take a look at that.
I think so.
It's good feedback. Yeah, we'll look at that and try to bring it back to you if general consensus works, so.
It would be a new. Piece, cause that would. Preparedness would not only impact like construction, but even if it's small. If it's small and just like, let's say even the 11th from heaven, like. She would be able to tell us, this is the exact. Like oven I want,
Yeah,
and this is all the details I already have.
right.
And that preparedness shows, one, that they're doing their homework. And they already know exactly how much they're gonna need, instead of just an arbitrary.
Sure.
Flat, we need $10,000, but maybe it's actually 12.
Yeah,
They don't know until they do the homework.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think people being able to show their work, show their homework,
Mm-hmm.
I think we should give them extra credit for that. And that's what preparedness to me would be.
okay, great.
Okay.
Do you mind if I go down you asked for staff recommendations? for
Yeah.
changes, so a
Yeah.
little bit more of those. One of the things that happened, the one application that got turned away was actually an application from the city. And the reason it got turned away was because Cascade Locks Fire and EMS had already been awarded a grant, which is a branch of the city. So McKed had recommended that we have some more clarifying language that really shows that there's really only one application per entity allowed, not just per round, but if we do allow people to take 2 years to complete their application, you have to have fully completed any active projects that you have funded with us and have your final report already approved and by the commission and everything wrapped up before you can apply again.
Okay.
So that was one thing we want to make sure you guys were okay with continuing with that, one entity is one application per round, and that project has to be complete before you can apply again.
I love that.
Okay.
No,
No,
Yeah.
And then for round one, we do have it in our guidelines that if you receive a grant, successfully complete it, your report is accepted, you are immediately then eligible to apply again. Do you want to keep doing that? Do you want to, past awardees are equally allowed to apply again?
I think so.
Okay.
What do you guys got?
Yeah.
New interesting ideas.
Yeah.
Or phase two.
I guess, so to that, one of the things that I'm actually learning from the Main Street one is that if you successfully complete the grant process, you actually get more points the next time you go in. Like they actually
Mhm.
have like you get a couple extra points.
Yeah, I think
If it's
some records like that
successful,
too.
and if it's unsuccessful, then you get docked.
These folks got a gold
Yeah.
star.
Yeah.
Look
Well,
at them.
because the entire idea of this is for us to, like, build out more economic development, and if people can prove that they've done that,
Yeah.
then you should reward them and let them have another chance to do it again.
Yeah.
You will see that very often in public-private partnerships, that the ones that are successful get to come back and do again and again and again.
And it's that
then
risk
it's like-
mitigation piece, it's,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
it's, it's not so much of a gamble if you have experience and, you know, so,
And
yeah.
I guess since we are, I guess, officially moving into round two, should we implement that?
Mhm.
Because any of these people, I mean, Northwest Rail Alliance is most likely gonna be asking for more money anyway, so should we consider?
For you to
that?
discuss, yeah.
Should we consider having a like +3 points or +2 points if you've already successfully completed in the past like 5 years? That's arbitrary, I'm just like that.
You could also use that as a deciding factor for you guys, for your own scoring.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, it's not about it, you know, your comments earlier about, I mean, maybe I'm mistakenly putting this in sort of a, extra credit category,
Okay.
you know? Where you were talking about, you know, the project on its own has to, it has to show evidence that it, provides a benefit to the community. You're talking about the applicant organization or business themselves. And so do you want to have maybe an extra credit category where they, you know, have you done any community service events in the past year? You
Yeah.
know, for example, maybe that gives you an extra 1 point, you know, if yes, I did, you know, this fundraiser for XYZ or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of, you know, I can't figure out how I would fit that into an eligibility criteria, you know, because I wouldn't want to turn away an applicant that is solely so totally focused on their business. Maybe they're a sole proprietor, or they're just one person, and you know, running a business or starting a business is all consuming. But it, you know, so I wouldn't want to discourage an application from those folks because they haven't done something else that
Right.
is, you know, shows benefit to the community. But maybe we could have an extra credit category where, you know, if you can demonstrate that you've done something else, maybe you get an extra couple, you know, I don't, just kind of throwing that out there. You know.
Yeah, because to me, like, all this, and I've talked to all of you at nauseam probably about this, but it's just like, I feel like this specifically, this grant program, obviously there's a lot of opportunity from an economic development standpoint and building businesses that we desperately need in town. But to me, that for us to truly be successful is like building the community, building the town, like overall, we need to start building out that circular economy to where local businesses are supporting other local businesses, or like if someone spends $10 at my place, and I
There,
spend
no,
$10 at
you're-
another place, and that spends $10, and they pay someone that goes to the grocery store, vice versa, and on and on and on. That $10 becomes $50 in our community.
Yeah.
Whereas if we give the money to someone and they, you know, buy XYZ, but it never has any sort of positive impact to the community at large,
Yeah.
then it's like, it's just that thing.
Yeah, and then,
So-
well, then the question is, what is the prompt? What is the proof?
Right.
You know, just because you don't see their community service doesn't mean it's not happening,
Exactly.
right? So how do we make sure we don't make this mistake
I know.
of us? But you know, we want to make sure, how do we don't make the mistake that we are scoring something that we just don't personally see,
Right.
but maybe it's happening, you know, so.
I think generally we probably, based on that feedback and then us coming together as staff along with have a sense of a way to wordsmith something that falls within the,
That maybe gets said
Yeah.
that for you.
That, it's a hard one, right?
Very
Because
hard to make it objective.
yeah, to make it attractive, and then it's gonna be doubly hard for mechanics,
To
because
score.
you guys don't necessarily, like, you're not boots on the ground here, you don't
Yeah.
go to like.
she's
fundraisers or-
she's here all the time.
She was here just
I don't think
the.
I,
Yeah.
I'll be here tomorrow.
Yeah.
But there were a couple things, right, that we even just called and talked about with Genevieve, where, you know, she, as boots on the ground, could answer some questions that
Yeah.
the applicant didn't answer
Right.
fully.
So maybe it is like an extra credit type of thing, but we, like, again, to me, it's like how, one, I think it needs to be a scored thing that's part of the rubric, is how does this positively impact the community in general?
Beyond the port.
Or just, yeah, with the port as well. But
Okay.
some sort of community involvement, like, so how does a project positively impact, like, the community? Like, if something as simple as like one of the trail lanes, they could easily answer that and say, if we're able to build out this trail, we're gonna be able to bring in more tourism, and that's gonna help the community.
Okay.
Then from heaven can easily say, well, this is, and they did say this in their application, this will allow us to actually have more products,
Yeah,
and more
more
product, we're
distribution.
gonna have more businesses in town, and that will be a community, like, so
Yeah.
it seems like that's a super easy question to answer if you actually have, like, if there actually is community positive impact.
So let me just make sure I'm clear. So you're talking about the project?
Yeah.
Not the
Both.
entity, both.
One,
Okay.
the project itself, I think we can score.
Okay, we do already,
Yeah,
right?
and the
Yeah,
entity itself, I think that could be like extra credit.
maybe an extra credit point or something. Okay, okay.
Cool.
Because if I see two projects and one person is like, oh, I'm on this council and this council, and I support the town like this, and I do this particular fundraiser for whatever,
Mhm,
and the other one's like, oh, well, we don't.
mhm.
I would want to give it to the person that's actually giving back to the community, me personally.
Okay. All right.
But I'm just one of five. That's just it's my personal opinion on it.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is why we have a work session, right? So staff can go back with that feedback and hammer it out and see what we can come up with.
Yeah.
Um,
Any other issues that I?
think so, but from administratively,
Yeah.
we think most of the administrative stuff we've been catching along the way. We're like, oh, we could have done that stronger. We could have done it better. It's no big changes. I think one thing that we do have, and I know you want to get out of here, I think we do have some room here within this scoring rubrics for you guys.
I
to
got my second win.
Perfect. For you guys to take a look at the scoring rubric and have an opportunity to have the actual scorers in the room and read through some of these and ask them what they're thinking when they score these, or things that they want you want them to be thinking about. I think she's already hearing things now, right? Especially on project readiness, where she's like, oh, cool. I will tell my team that when we're scoring that, the commission is thinking about it in this way. So are there any other questions in their rubric that you look at it and go, what are you thinking when you score this a 3? Or what do you think this question means to you? Or, and we don't have to go through them one by one, but this is our one chance to have the scorers here and
Yeah.
for you guys to lean into that.
I think whenever we had the scores in front of us, we had a lot more questions because we were like, oh, why is that a 2 instead of a 3 or whatever?
And that's the result of that separation, right?
Right.
Yeah, so it's like.
But
You know.
to your question is like, are there any that we kind of have questions on?
Yeah, you have questions on yourself or just I mean, I guess maybe a question here, what are the top 2 or 3 questions that you guys struggle with deciding whether it's a 2 or a 3 or a 1 or a 2? Like which are the ones that you guys are like, eh? And do you, and how many people score? Remind me.
Right now it's 2.
And do you guys do it blindly or do you converse after the fact?
So we both do it and then meet and kind of talk through, especially if there's things that we scored at the same, then we're like, okay, that's clearly the score. But if there's things that we scored differently, then we're like, why did you do that? And a lot of times I just like go back to the rubric and I'm like, well, according to this, it should be a 2, you know? So
Yeah.
I use this a lot.
It really helps as a tool to keep things objective. And I just love the way that you guys built this. This is actually, we sent them the scoring criteria and McKed turned it into a tool that they referred to constantly and used over and over.
And we did,
I
we
guess
we
to that,
specifically
are
did,
there any within the rubric, are there like any words that could be too vague or too subjective that you want clarification on? It's like, I've built out like
How does
job description, and you're like, oh, to get to the next level, you have to, show excellence, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, oh, okay, what's excellent to me is to have excellent to you. So there's certain words that we could probably clarify for you.
Yeah.
I might need to think about that question a little bit more.
Mhm.
I was thinking about when you were like, are there somebody that are hard to score? I think a lot of people struggle to answer the sustainability of the project, post-funding, risk, challenges, mitigation, environmental impacts, but because it's like 11 from heaven, what are their environmental impacts?
Right.
But that's where in the rubric, we actually do have where it says you get a grade if there are no actual environmental impacts. So it does make it clear because sometimes, like, what would they be? But if it's like, well, if there's nothing, then, they get a grade.
Is there anything that everyone just got a 3? Like everyone just always getting those points, then should we like hold out that question? It was like, oh, everyone already, it's like a
I don't
checkbox and
think
they
we
get
did.
points
I
on that.
don't think so. I
Okay.
can't think of anything that was just so easy
I think
to answer,
I think sometimes people struggle also with the justification and challenge, which I think is important. It's like, what is the problem you're trying to solve and how are you solving it?
Yeah.
It's super important, but sometimes some people really excel at objectively seeing that and some people less so.
And those two questions I think kind of speak to what you were talking about earlier is we ask them on two levels. What is the problem or opportunity? What is the problem you're trying to solve or the opportunity you're trying to embrace for your business?
Right.
And how does your project do that for your business? And we do ask, the question is, what does your project do for the community? Let me find that one.
Okay.
So I can read how it okay, so let's see. I guess it wasn't separate. I was thinking of it as separate. Maybe we should separate. Well, number 3, please describe, let's see. We ask what program priority does it address? And then we say, please describe the community or business need, problem, or challenge that your project will address. And it basically saying, why is your project needed in Cascade Locks? And maybe we should split that to be like, why does your business need this project? And then why does the community need the project? So that they have a chance to really think about that community benefit for their project, maybe separate from their business.
Love it.
So we could split that into 2 questions and have them actually really think, when we talk about going back to what you were saying about job creation and kind of quantifying that, how many jobs are you going to create? Are they short term, long term? I think when Jeremiah brought up events, are they temporary seasonal jobs? Are all these guys only working in the summer, and then so maybe we want to think about, not just those construction jobs that are short term but also those just seasonal events, maybe even a 1 weekend job, but we do ask them to kind of talk about direct and indirect. So I'm going to do this event. It's only 1 weekend, but it's going to bring thousands of people to town and that will help these businesses and that those businesses keep those, so how far down that pipeline the ripple effect is, they have to, it's got to pass a sniff test that, your festival is going to last beyond that weekend by this particular impact, so.
Yeah, so then I guess instead of direct and indirect, should it be short term and long term? Job creation?
Or both,
Oh,
reoccurring.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because as a grant applicant, I would think of an example, let's say I want to apply for a grant for, let's say an art fair.
Right.
That's only one weekend.
Right.
That directly, it's only those, I've got security, I've got marketing or whatever, and just for the event. But I can say that, 100 artists are gonna have a chance to share their work and, that exposure, I don't, something to think about how you, so that's an indirect benefit, but
I feel like job creation is fairly clear. Is there a job before this? If there's not, does it
Mhm.
create this job, right?
Right.
Like, the house painter that paints the house is always a house painter. You just created work for him. You didn't
difference
create
between
a
work
job.
and a job.
I think
Right.
that's what I'm thinking short term, small term
Okay,
would probably be
Okay.
useful there.
okay. Well, we'll wordsmith that and
Yeah.
maybe kind of try to figure out a way to weight that better. So can we switch to the timeline discussion? Or do
Are we good with small grant, large grant?
Yeah, you guys good with how that was set up?
With small versus large? Yeah,
Mhm.
I think so.
Leave that all as is? Okay,
I think timeline is sort of the next one that, unless we have anything else we want to tackle.
Yeah, I wanna jump back to get more feedback from you guys, cause I saw the scoring sheets, but I didn't see any of the actual applicants,
Mhm.
applications.
Mhm.
So I guess kind of continuing on, were there any additional, I guess, challenges on you guys' end that you want some clarification on, or?
No, I don't.
Do you feel handcuffed anywhere where you're like, oh, this is a good application that does this thing that is not, there's nowhere for me to score somewhere that this application stands out? Or do you think we covered that in this? I think we just want to make sure you have the best tools to score things as accurately as you can. And
One of the trickiest things we saw right away was that we allowed people to submit their own budget form in their own way instead of a standardized budget form. So the MCED staff fixed that, came up with a standardized budget form that will have everybody use across the board and also reimbursement. So really that's sort of on the admin side of things, but people can write budgets lots of different ways and, so we wanted, so MCED was really good at saying that we need to show income and expenses and show the match in a certain way and sort of in the process of doing that, one of the things we thought about is if the match is coming from you, right? How do we ask them to prove that they've got the money? I don't want to see a bank statement, right? But if the project is $50,000 and so whatever 20% of that is 10,000 or whatever, how do we make sure that that money has been secured? So if the money is coming from another funding partner, another grant, you can show me your award letter. If it's coming from another private partner, as the case with Kylea's is, the landowner is like, here's our letter, we're pledging 10,000, that's our proof. But if the answer is self, you know, maybe this is a Tommy question. What sort of proof do we want to show that they're on the hook for that match? And one of the ways that we've done that is how we disperse the remaining reimbursements. So if you spend $100, you're only getting $80 back because we're holding on to you're spending your 20% at this parallel with our 80% of your grant. And so that's one way, but we haven't asked for some kind of proof that that funding has been secured before it's already been
Well,
spent.
have we, like you were saying from the rewarding, because they say that they have the money,
Mhm.
whenever we are doing the reimbursement, do we have to show? Do they have to show that they've showed it?
They have to show that they've paid, they've paid that bill, they've submitted a receipt asking for reimbursement for $100 and they get $80 back as they go,
Okay.
so.
And then I guess the other question is, it's been so long since we actually built it out. What do we do if someone doesn't finish the project?
Gone for the day?
What?
You looking for us, Travis, or?
What what happens if someone doesn't finish the project? I forgot.
Then it's a failed project.
And then they just
Yeah.
give us all the money back?
They give us any remaining unexpended funds.
Which they would only have if it was a small project.
Yeah, right.
And they don't get a gold star.
To answer your question about if there is a question like we didn't score, some of the applications were just really well thought out and they put a lot of time into it, some of them were not. But I feel like that ended up coming through in the overall score, and especially if you're getting on as one batch. Those people that didn't put a lot of time in the application would get a low score and they would just
Yeah,
get themselves
Yeah.
out of the running.
yeah. Yeah.
And so I guess I have another question for both of you, since both of you are involved with grants all the time. Is there anything that you've seen in other grants that you're kind of saying, oh, you guys definitely need to put this in here?
I think that's kind of what we've already.
We've already
said.
done that.
Just the project
The
detail. so.
Yeah,
Title and the description.
yeah,
Like how
Right.
much you want to say.
right,
Right.
Some of the budgets, it was not clear.
yeah, yeah, yeah. How much is that one? Yeah.
Okay.
And then we also,
And I've never.
I think we've
yeah.
also done a good job of putting a program together that is reachable and attainable by somebody who's maybe never applied for a grant before.
Yeah.
So there was some of that that went into this as
Yeah.
well as.
And I think that's the thing that was new for me and kind of nice about round one being sort of a demo phase is I've never applied for a grant where it wasn't super stiff competition. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like I've never had the chance to be the only applicant being reviewed in a meeting by a funding board. And so that's going away with this round. And I think it was kind of nice for those first round people. You know, it was much more forgiving in the first round than it will be in the second round. You know, it's assuming we get a decent number of applications, I think it'll be more competitive that you'll be looking at them all at once.
How do we advertise to do that?
So we put it on our website. We have it on our Facebook page. It's also on the tip of my tongue regularly. I'm hoping that it's on the tip of commissioners' tongues. I know that people all the time tell you this have this great idea or what the port should do, or right, and this is a great way to have some action on that and say that is an awesome idea. You guys should apply for it. Right.
Port should do. Port should just let everybody go across the bridge because there's a line.
So I talk about it a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of my default things in most conversations when people tell me what the port should be doing. I'm like, well, actually,
And we
so I
did
hope
issue
that
press
you guys are
release.
doing that as well.
Absolutely.
And also, looking for things that you want to come in front of this commission. Like if you see something that's great, get in front of those people and let them know, right? Be talking about that a lot. It's one of the biggest impacts you guys can make quickly. And you guys have seen how slow projects move at the government level. We've got this one moving at a pretty good pace.
So
So
when people do say, well, the line at the bridge is really long, it's all about the money. The port just cares about the money. That's when you tell them, well, that money, a lot of that money goes back into your community.
Yeah.
And,
And that's
segue that into our
that's-
grant program and all of the things that Cascade Locks is doing. And thank you, when you're waiting on the bridge a little bit, it's
Yeah.
because slow people in front of you are paying more money than you are. And it's going into our grant program
Yeah.
to help locals.
Yeah.
I think we will, to your point, Carrie, how are we getting the word out? I think we will make another hard push at it this year.
Mhm.
So we'll look past Facebook, we'll look past word of mouth, we'll look past our website and look for other ways we can get this out. McKed has it in, don't you guys have one of your newsletters?
We did issue a press release.
We issued a press release
Gorge News.
with Columbia Gorge News, but we will push it again. We want it to be as competitive as possible.
And one of our last applications in was the direct result of an awarded application telling their friend that was a business owner, hey, you should apply to this program. It worked for me, so
A local
word of
business-
mouth is a big deal.
A local
Yeah.
business just stopped us on the way in and was like, oh my goodness, we heard that the coffee shop just got this, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, are you guys applying? And they're like,
Yeah,
we should totally apply.
right.
So I think it's just gonna take a little bit to get around, but.
Yeah, I've told a couple of people, I'm going, hey, we got the new, more money in the kitty, 1st of July, now it's new fiscal year, which means, the grant program's up and rolling, so if you were thinking about doing it last year.
And this really, I mean, that
Do it
was
this year.
that was the creation of this program generally, was to take something that was a little bit fuzzy and not attainable for people working with the port on an economic development project. The path to that used to be a little bit difficult and a little bit slippery and not accessible to everybody. This levels the playing field, makes it very black and white on how to do it and shows instant impact. It's it's a way that this commission specifically has immediately made an impact to economic development in this town that people are already seeing and already feel like, hey, I can be a part of that. So it's been really successful. I think it'll ultimately be even more successful, and I hope it's something you guys talk about a lot because it's a big win for you guys.
And, you know, for a community our size and a port our size, all of the goals and objectives in our strategic business plan, which only goes through fiscal year 29, is really ambitious. I mean, we've got a very small staff, and this is a really neat way to share the workload. And I feel like the more we formalize or wait, or, you know, really point people to, you've got to show that your project helps the port get its work done. And it's, you have to really demonstrate that your project is part of this mission that we have. The stronger their application is going to be. And the more we have business, active, vibrant businesses like fully engaged in the strategic business planning plans objectives, you know, it's a really, you know, it's a great thing.
Probably be part of when we're telling people, oh, you know, apply, say, read the strategic business plan because it's pretty awesome and a lot of thought went into it. And, you know,
it's a great way to motivate people, yeah, to read it.
Be scored on how well it aligns with our strategic business plan. So,
which is question number 2,
right? And there's there's a number of executive directors throughout Oregon that have approached me specifically and been like, how are you guys doing that? How are you protecting yourselves? This is how we did it in 1986 and it went terribly. What are you guys doing? It's not like we're the first port that's ever considered this. We're just the first port that sort of thought through it all the way to get a program that is pretty locked solid.
And so when we talk to people about it, we get fairly we get positive feedback. I mean, they when we said, yeah, we got my kid administering it, you know, when we were at
that was definitely an aha moment.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, good call. And and praised us for our program in general, just to doing that. And yeah, so
that's definitely the magic.
I mean, I think between that and our what we're doing with moving forward with the RV park, I've had several people ask, well, what's going on with that? And I said, hey, you know, we're moving forward. We empowered Jeremiah to start moving forward on that program, and their community's excited about it.
Yeah.
And they're again think it's a brilliant idea as far as you know, at least how we're envisioning it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to go back. Sorry.
I was just going to say, you know, just to kind of pull back the veil a little bit so you guys understand how Jeremiah and I answer questions from potential grant applicants, you know, and to their credit, I do this all the time, call the staff and say, okay, how can I make my application score the best? The answer universally is, you know, we can't coach you. But I can tell you the most important thing you can do in preparation of your application is read the strategic business plan and make sure that your project does something for that, you know, so.
So for 13 environmental impacts and 14 volunteers, I could see, and you sort of touched on this earlier, like I can see how that can be the environmental impacts. I can see how that could probably be a challenge for some folks. Is there probably a better way, like in your guys' minds, like how will you be able to kind of address that?
I remember that was one that specifically was added by the commission, was it not?
Yeah, I think that was a worry.
I think it was a
totally
concern.
Definitely, but I guess my question is more like, whenever you are looking at responses, do you see like that one's a struggle point for some people, for most
I think
people?
a lot of people struggle to figure out how to answer that, and maybe it just means in the question itself, we provide examples of what we're thinking about.
Yeah.
Noodle question itself to be.
Yeah. Yeah, a little bit more.
Do that.
Give some more tips on how to answer. Think about this, you know.
Some people might. I mean, environment is a big thing, right? So some people could be thinking about it.
I wonder if we could provide. I wonder if we could do a XYZ company example for them to read through one that.
Yeah.
What about?
These are strong answers for, or this is a complete answer. This is what we would consider a complete answer.
Yeah, okay.
The challenge with that, and I'm sure,
It's apples and oranges so much as.
well, the challenge I imagine a lot of people will be like, oh, this example, they wanted it an answer exactly like
That's
Yeah,
fair.
and then
That's
kind
fair.
of,
That's
But
fair.
we do
But
want
I-
to have some sort of like,
yeah,
we want to help move them to where we want them to be.
yeah.
Because if everyone has a challenge with it, or a lot of people seem to have a challenge with it, that means that we can probably be clearer with her.
But we could put,
I
a
also
little.
feel like most projects that are going to have an environmental impact are well aware of that and ready to discuss that. I think the people that struggle with it are probably the ones that are going to have little to no environmental impact.
Yeah, I think most of them just had no.
Right. I think the data center would know that there's going to be an environmental impact. I think it was some of those.
Right.
Yeah.
But most people, it was just not, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And the volunteer question, I think, was what we were really going for with that was, it was really sort of a community support, community buy-in question.
That's what
Like,
that was.
if you've got 50 people signed up for your litter pickup day, then we know that you
Right.
have got this community buy-in.
And I guess with that one, it's like,
And most
even
people
something,
didn't.
yeah.
Most people were like, I have no volunteers.
Yeah.
So that, yeah, because I can see like 11 from heaven, they're not gonna have.
Yeah,
volunteers.
yeah.
So should that be turned into like an extra credit thing?
It kind in my mind, and maybe this is the wrong way to think about it, it kind of ties into what we didn't really require was letters of support. I mean, you kind of, we invited you to upload letters of support. I think for the $50,000 grants, you had to have at least 3. The small grants, you didn't have to have any. And I think that volunteer question was sort of a stand-in for that,
I think that volunteer question, I think that could probably just be replaced with, please submit 3 letters of support.
Support regardless.
That way we know at least some folks in the community buy into it.
Yeah.
Right?
And it kind of goes to your follow the dollar model of, if I spend at this and that business spends at that, I think some of the letters of support we got were from other businesses saying, I support what Albert's doing, or Albert supports what so-and-so is doing, it was helpful, but it didn't, in my mind, none of those letters of support said, yeah, everybody in the neighborhood thinks this is a great idea. Here's 50 letters of support. We didn't get anything like that.
My mom says she loves this idea.
Yeah. So, but it would be nice to have at least 3,
We want this really, really loud thing downtown, and we're all of a sudden
Right.
putting money into it because it's a good application,
Right.
yet nobody in town wants it, right? So that was sort of that.
And
Volunteers, but
helps, just like a support thing. Right?
Kind of forces people to talk to somebody else, I mean, introverts like me trying to start your own business and you never talk to anybody. Well, now I got to go get 3 letters of support. So I have to go tell somebody what I'm doing and make sure that, it plays well with the community. So I like that idea, maybe 3 minimum letters of support, regardless of the amount that you're asking.
Okay.
So the last piece, unless we have more, we still have timeline we need to get to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess those are the main things. For me, I just thought it was I enjoyed the process. I know we had a little bit of like hurdles and stuff, but it was totally expected, right? Like
Yeah.
brand new, right? So application process improvements, those are my questions for you guys. It's good. Community involvement benefit, I've already mentioned that. I think Carrie, you're right. Minimum points. I was thinking we should do minimum points, but if we're gonna be changing stuff up and changing weighting, maybe we just wait.
Well,
Then
I
we're
want to
adding
see a
in new
full
stuff.
cycle go through, like we haven't seen those success reports from all the ones that we've already given, and I'd like to see how the whole thing works for a cycle or so before we start
Yeah.
minimum.
We haven't
scoring.
had our first failed project, so.
But also if we're adding in preparedness,
Yeah.
if we're adding in the community involvement, we're adding those things in, then really hard for us to say minimum now.
Right.
On the timeline thing, perhaps we keep it at a year unless, there will be projects that if they need additional time, maybe certain project needs to be 2 years, but the standard timeline would be 1 year.
Yeah.
Unless, because I hate to have every project, they got 2 years to,
Yeah,
you know, a
right.
simple project, I don't have to give them, I don't have to tell them what I did for 2 years.
Yeah.
You know, I'd like to keep it at a year unless it's a project they feel will be, they will need additional time, and then that's,
Right.
you know, and then we basically approve that with the award, that we've given them additional time to complete something that.
Or they
Awards,
come
that
back
awards.
to us mid-project and say like, hey, this is gonna take longer than a year.
Mhm.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
we have
I
that-
think
we
people
put that
will-
in the mid.
in general will
or
know
longer
if
months.
Yeah.
it's gonna take, you know, could feasibly take long.
And is that something that if you guys did do that where it took long, it's gonna take longer, is that something you want to come to a commission level decision on to be voted on whether or not? Or do you want that handled at administrative level where someone's asking for an extension and staff within knows that we can give you a 6 months extension? That's something that we can handle. If it comes to you guys, it's gotta get voted on, right? If it's handled at the staff level, then we know that we have the discretion to move those out. Either way is, it's
Yeah.
great, just what your preference is.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, you guys are being much more close with whoever's gonna be working on it anyways, you guys can pass the sniff test. Better than we would be able to, you guys should just be telling us everything you already can.
Well, it's not like they're gonna be getting more money, it's just
Mhm.
the. Something came up in the construction and this is delayed, like
Yeah.
hardware is not coming in or the whatever, so I'm unable to complete the project in the initial stated timeline. I think those are the kind of decisions you guys can definitely make, and I would be comfortable with you guys making that.
Are there any projects that you guys say are not a good fit for this? Or do we want to continue to see projects regardless of what they are? We saw some projects in this last cycle that did not score well, right? And is that a project that we say doesn't fit? It doesn't matter.
Like a single family home Airbnb remodel is probably one that we would ever.
Yeah.
Consider, I don't know.
And do we want to say we're not going to consider those things, or do we just want to let them apply and they'll see that they don't score? And that's, it's sort of up to you guys on whether or not we want to.
Put somebody else through the whole process and give them false hope if we're never gonna. Award
Right,
things like that, you know, if we know.
Well, that's why we put, sports teams, religious groups,
Right.
political, don't bother applying. You
So
know,
there are
if you
other-
want to say short-term rentals, don't bother applying.
I mean, short-term rental, I think we would consider ones that accommodate multiple, like, maybe hotels or stuff like that, but like ones that only accommodate like one family at a time or whatever.
Okay.
Was something that it seems like the whole commission was kind of a. Gotcha.
A little bit of an under the radar, business to some degree, I mean, it's.
Yeah.
Right.
well, what did they say, I mean, I remember the Airbnb one, did they say downtown revitalization or enhanced tourism?
Both.
Oh. Just because of the location? or
Yeah, I
what?
mean, we probably shouldn't talk too much about the public session about that one application, but it goes to that. The community impact was very, very minimal because the benefit was, just in this one building
Right.
and one renter at a time versus like you're saying, multiple rooms and higher transient room tax rates and all of that.
Yeah, but that's city thing, that's not like
Yeah.
strategic business plan for us specifically.
Right,
Right,
right.
so like, I didn't even like.
Our hope is that the
if
score
we
would
do
shake
review
that.
Strategic business plan, I think that if the person that, if I think the person reviewed it, I think they would be able to been like, oh,
Yeah.
this really doesn't do
Yeah.
that.
On the economic development landscape, generally, Airbnbs, VRBOs are not viewed all that favorably in terms of the economic impact. There's, you're taking a house away from workforce housing. Somebody's not always occupying it. On the other flip side, they are paying room tax, but at the same time, there's folks don't generally see that as a positive to the community, so.
Right,
Another, I guess, side question we brought up, I think, do we want to include affordable housing as part of that?
It's
That
in
would
our
be-
plan.
Are we then doing some $50,000 to help them build?
Remove a house from
Build
the
a,
housing.
remodel their house and turn, and put it in an ADU,
Yeah,
you know? And
I mean, I would assume it,
yeah.
if you're gonna do that, it's gonna cost more than $50,000 for sure, like.
That also-
You build out a proper amount of affordable housing that we need, $50,000, I think.
Well, they would have to have some kind of agreement to make it actually affordable housing or something to align with our business plan. If we just assist them in building an ADU and now they're profiting by charging $2,500 a month and no one can afford to live there,
Sure.
you know?
Yeah, you wanna
That
show,
doesn't really align.
it's always gonna revert back to, demand.
yeah.
And you also have your three main focus areas, right? So if you have ones that do show up in some part of the strategic business plan that we hadn't considered, somebody would tie it to, which, you know, could be interesting, actually, if somebody ties it to this.
Housing, I think.
You do have downtown revitalization, tourism, and recreation is something that the commission can look at and say, this was a good one, but really our focus this year is these ones.
Right. Just real quick, getting back to the timeline, you know, here we are, almost August.
Yeah.
These applicants have until like December 31st of this year to complete their applications. And one of the reasons we set that December date is we wanted, they have, I think, 30 days after they complete their project to submit their report. And so we're thinking, okay, so that's the end of January if everybody goes to the end. And then February is when you would see that report, maybe. Then you're in budget season, right? And so I was concerned that I wanted you to know that these applications were completed successfully or not, because I was thinking of how does this affect your budget process? So
Yeah.
if we're gonna give them a year, do we want to actually give them to the end of the fiscal? Or do you want to give it to the end of the calendar? What feels better for you guys? So if let's say we open the application window next month. How much time do you want to give everybody? When do you want to make your decision on this batch? And when do you want them to be done with their projects?
That's a. Technically, we have another 150 like up right now.
What time?
Technically, we have a program in our current budget for this year.
Yes,
Currently sitting there, so it's like,
yeah.
so
Yeah.
we need to get it done.
We need to get it rolling. Yeah, that's what this is, right? It's like we're about to start
And we
the
do
second
have-
time.
I
What do we
have
want to
been
change?
contacted by three.
Yeah.
3 or 4 potential
I would-
applicants
I would-
asking when is it gonna open?
Ideally, I want to bring your guys' recommendations back to the next meeting in August in a couple of weeks. Get those approved. Everything according to plan, we open the cycle September 1st.
Yeah,
So give them September, October. It's do we give them November also? If we
Yeah.
don't give them November, that's helpful for us. Because that means that we get November with the 30 days, we get to bring them back to you, you guys get to decide, there's a work session in there. And then starting January, they've got it. If we give them November as well, it does put us a little behind.
yeah.
But also
I don't think it's 30 days
To
to.
review it.
Right.
yeah,
Let's give
right,
that-
sure, right, plus the days to score.
And if she,
So I
and
would think if you had it open for a month, I know it's not my decision,
yeah,
but for all the grants that I work on, I feel like if it's open for a month, that's totally.
So we're talking end of October as
Okay.
the deadline date.
so end of October deadline date and the award,
Yeah.
the award announcement day would be somewhere around the 1st of January.
Mhm.
And they would have until December 31, 2026.
Mhm.
Is that how you wanna do it?
Yep.
Okay,
I mean,
That feels cleaner and
it
then.
feels clean and it feels like it informs,
Like
yeah,
standpoint is like where those dollars, which budget are those dollars gonna come from, but if we already have them, like, I guess this is. For
It's all gonna
from
be
budget
suspended
standpoint,
by.
Yeah.
can we kind of have some of those dollars, like, if the next budget doesn't start until July 1st of next year. And we allocated them this year, but.
Oh, you guys wrote a check to me.
Right.
It's in my bank account.
So we'll be faster, okay.
Yeah.
Allocate those dollars.
yeah, the money's already gone.
So there's
For
nothing-
us, it's spent. For us, it's spent and gone and done.
Okay.
If for some reason there was money left over, then we'd have to figure out how to get that back to us from an accounting standpoint, but we might even just come to you guys and ask if we could roll it into the.
Yeah, then I like the idea of starting it in January, especially with preparedness, because where we live, especially if it's gonna be construction.
Yeah.
You're not really gonna start anything until March at the earliest.
And
Like,
nothing's
nothing's
time to, so it gives you time for more planning and preparation and that sort of thing.
And a lot of the big work and stuff.
Yeah.
I like the idea of.
And I like it, the action being in December, January, so that March, when you guys are rolling around going, well, how much do we need in the grant fund next year?
Right,
You've got some really,
if all of a
good
sudden we go
information.
through this and we got 30 applications and you guys wanted to fund all 30 because they were all amazing. And you're saying, Jeremiah, we gotta figure out a way to find more money for this thing where it's.
then we have time
It's
to,
going right into grant where I
Okay.
can be like, okay, where do we find more money for the grant?
And I like announcement in January, you gotta finish by December.
so it's a Labor Day opening and a Halloween deadline, and
Sure.
then we go from there. New Year's Eve, we send the awards, so I like that cycle.
Cool, I like that.
Is
Just
there,
means Jessica's working over Christmas.
No, November.
Okay, and Thanksgiving, yeah.
Get the advertising out there, Jeremiah jumping
Yeah.
across the screen, throwing money.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that'd be so great, Stan. Yeah.
It's like, come on. It's Jeremiah Jim Jam. Jeremiah Jim Jam throwing money.
Was there any help that you guys needed where, that we could maybe provide more? We have on the website, we have all of the questions of the application available to preview. So before they start an application, they know exactly what they have to be ready with. There's a little video that, explains why this program exists and what we want you to be talking about in your application. Was there anything that came up for you in this that a better way that we could support your ability to answer questions or make these decisions besides that?
I've been yapping a lot during this, I'll gladly wait for someone else to say something first.
Okay. Nothing top of mind?
cool if we gave them a little card that had the highlights of what the program was and maybe the website
Okay.
that they could be
Little
like,
business
check
card
this,
type
yeah,
thing?
something small that explains the program and what QR code takes you right to it. You guys.
And we can put that up all over town too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I guess for me, I know that all of us every time we reviewed one of the score sheets, every single one of us were like, well, how did they get to this
Mhm.
answer
Mhm.
or this number?
And I think that's because you didn't see the rubric, but now you've got it. So you know what a 2 means.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
I don't know, still feels like there was like,
And that's
like questions on like.
That's something that.
Since we don't get to see the application, I think for us, a lot of our questions were really around. Why this versus that, even though the rubric will like help guide us that,
Mm-hmm.
but. I don't know, I know that more often than not, people were like saying, man, I wonder like what was their actual answer?
Mm-hmm.
But we should completely stay away from that.
Well,
Right?
I don't know. I mean,
It creates it. What you guys are really doing is saying that we have hired McKed with them having a complete understanding of how this commission would score things, and we're trusting them to score them. If we get into a situation where we find ourselves in a public session questioning whether a 2 is a 2 and whether I would have given that a 2,
Yeah.
it starts to degrade a little bit the process. And so that is why. I mean, that's a little bit of what this is, and maybe we do it again sometime, right? Is for you guys to lean into them on, this is a 2, this is a 3 to me, right? And this is what we think. This is what.
But that's really hard for us to, and that's what I'm saying. I don't necessarily want us to have to get into this wormhole of like us looking at the application, reviewing the application.
Well, something that we
felt to be like, well, I would have done
something that we certainly could do is provide you the applications and the score sheets of the ones that we've already awarded them to. So then you guys go back and look and see some of the thought process and see it in review, and like, I mean, that's something we could certainly do.
And then I guess we'll need to define this within the rubric, but things like community benefit, community involvement, those like optional extra credit ones. a lot of those, I don't know how you guys would necessarily score those at this particular moment.
Well, everything that they score is set by the criteria that you've set.
Right.
Yeah, so it's like,
By adding,
what does
like,
that
if
look
we
like?
added in preparedness, we added, do we need to come to another meeting and define?
Yeah,
what
that's,
preparedness
that's what Jeremiah is saying we'll bring to you
Oh,
next
gotcha.
month.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
Yeah. So we'll go back with, I mean, we're gonna sit with Tommy, we'll all sit together in a room and say, what did you hear from them? What did you hear from them? What can we pull off? Tommy, make sure that we're doing it in a way that that fits within the mission, and then we'll bring that back to you for actual adoption
Okay.
at the next meeting.
And I'll probably look at that piece pretty hard, because I think for me, the key is that you are objective. And that the benefits you're identifying are still tied back to the strategic business. So the more we weight things that are separated from that, the harder I'm gonna have to look at that and say,
Right.
let's.
Yeah.
yeah, that's all.
And it's not, I mean, it's, a lot of it's not scientific, right? It's not like 2 jobs versus 1, like, it's all still somewhat squishy, so. If you do look at the applications that have already gone through and have feedback about, oh, I would have scored this higher, harder, I don't know, I would be interested.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think like one of the ones that we had a challenge with was the 11 from heaven, because they actually scored really low, but we have connection, like we've all experienced them, so like
Yeah.
to us, we're like, well, we actually see the value in this because we do have like,
yeah,
we have experienced what this product is. We have ideas when it could come.
yeah. There are so few opportunities, or at least historically, there's so few opportunities for a for-profit entity to apply for grant funding that most of these folks have zero experience in it. And so, give them a couple of more years, and the application they submitted in round 1 is like, it'll be so much better in year 3, just because, we're a lot of the first part of it was just sort of coaching people on what a grant means, what are you entering into here, and going through the contract terms. And it's so new to people because they're not in the nonprofit arena, and they're not in government, they're in business, and this has never really happened for business people. So a lot of it was like grant making and writing 101, which is a community service in itself, because there are actually more and more opportunities, all over the country for-profit businesses to get grants, but it's still new. So, a lot of it was sort of the education curve, where I think, the first draft is what we got.
Right.
And then, and we don't want to coach anybody, but we definitely knew we were reading people's first draft.
Oh, yeah.
And they were safe in submitting their first draft. Round 2, it's gonna need to be a little bit more polished, because
Love
this
it.
straight up competition.
Love it.
But that's all I have.
Fantastic, what I got. I guess I would give a reminder to you guys that we don't do a lot of work sessions. This is something that, this is a tool that remains in your guys' toolbox. I think it's great to have some of these facilitated conversations that don't necessarily put you guys right on the spot to call a vote, make a decision, right? But give us some direction, some feedback in order to craft our work.
Yeah.
It's certainly helpful. Just a reminder that this exists.
Yeah, one thing we did cover, review of small grant, large grant amounts, requirements. Do we want to change anything to those? Any thoughts on those?
I think we did.
We had a couple
We did talk about
administrative
that.
ones that we're gonna change, but.
Yeah, I'm gonna change the letters, so,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
But other than that, any other requirements that we have thoughts on, or like that maybe you guys have thoughts on? Is there anything?
I still-
Easier.
Don't want to make it any harder on my kid. They're already jumping.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, for the applicant.
Absolutely.
I would like to make it, like, if it's harder on the applicants, but it makes it easier on you, like, I think that's a totally worthwhile thing,
Yeah.
because if we're giving out free money, we need like. Not free
Yeah.
money, but like it's a grant, right? So if we wanna make people show the work and do the homework before.
Yeah. The meat of the meat of at least Jeremiah and I's discussion on that really was focused on the construction projects. Like one of the things is we want to actually see the quote, so we know that your estimate is informed.
Mhm.
And, maybe if your quote has been received within 90 days, even that should be scored higher because, as you know, costs of construction materials is just all over the place. If you got your quote 6 months ago, we don't know if that's really how much that lumber costs, and so trying to encourage people to show us the quote that they received from a contractor with a date on it, so that we can, that readiness question can really be provided with evidence. Yes.
Cool. So the levels stay the same requirements except for what we,
The construction section, I think, is gonna look new, for a construction project,
and
because
then
we'll have,
the three recommendations.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, we have time to do this, you think? Get this back to them by the next meeting? You're going on town, you said, right?
I can review some.
Okay,
Yeah, I think so.
because our date to
There
open,
has-
our date to open is based on them adopting it at the next meeting, so I just want to make sure
Yeah.
we know what we're biting off.
Yeah.
Cool.
There were no surprises, I'll put it that way.
Agree.
So we have everything figured out.
Thank you very much.
If there's nothing further, we are adjourned.
Thanks,
I
everybody.
second.
19th, Carrie Ann? Is that our next meeting?
Anything?
Thanks.
Thanks.